Hello and welcome to Joy of Books with me, Miss Joy. Today's offering is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This adult fiction book was released in 2006 and contains 287 pages. Sharing his views on the book today is author and teacher TC.
Well, this is a book that I revisited recently, and I am absolutely delighted that I did, because I distinctly remember reading this back in the early noughties, maybe, and not being too enamoured with it, shall we say. It's a post-apocalyptic thriller, which I really like now. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe I didn't like those sorts of books back then. But it's a thriller set in the United States, essentially a future that's dystopian. There's no hope there. And you have a father and a son on this journey after a seemingly cataclysmic event that's not described. Could it have been a nuclear bomb? Could it have been some kind of meteorite, something like that? It has essentially destroyed most of the civilization there. The father is definitely ill with this really serious cough, but he's carrying their cart and their meagre possessions, trying to find a place where he and his son can be safe. So one really quite shocking thing is at the very beginning, the father admits that he's taught the son how to use a revolver, but on himself, if he needs to save himself from cannibals. So immediately the tone is set, and it's the dark side of survival that is at the forefront of this book. Like I say, I really didn't enjoy it 20 odd years ago, but now I don't know if it's a post-pandemic thing. I don't know if it's because of the resurgence in post-apocalyptic films and text, but I really did get into it. I really enjoyed reading it this second time around. And again, I can't stress enough the benefit of time and place when you read a book in your life, physically, geographically, emotionally. So important. And just because you didn't like a book when you were a child does not mean that you can't revisit it and get a lot out of it later in life. So this is very tense, this one. The psychological aspect of this is very dramatic as well. I know that many people will criticise Cormac McCarthy for his simplistic writing style. I know the dialogue, they'll say, okay, use one verb in the opening sentence, followed by no verbs in the next three. Right, okay, but that's his style, that's what he's using here. Why is he using it? That's what I'd ask those readers to that question. Is he trying to get across the idea that civilization has failed? Is that why the language is so basic and simplistic? If it is, then is that not bordering on genius? Is that not bordering on creative skill and originality? If it is, then you have to laud McCarthy for that, not criticise him. The wife, by the way, had killed herself, so she was adamant that she could not live in a world without any hope after that cataclysmic event. So it's a very sombre beginning to a novel. There aren't too many books out there as sad that I can think of on the spot, but certainly the fact that the wife just couldn't bear to carry on and didn't even have that maternal instinct to stay alive and protect her son, that really is something to pause for thought for as you're reading through that section. So they come across all kinds of threats. So these marauders who are always looking for food and possessions, they stumble across a group of these who do take them. There's only a couple of bullets in the gun that they have, so one of them they have to use on one of these marauders. And again, that's it's not the fact that they've taken a life, which is very bad. And there's always this conflict with the father saying that they're the good people, the marauders are the bad people, and they had to use a bullet on one of these bad people, even if it meant that one of them wouldn't be able to end their own lives if and when the time came. Again, these are decisions that we can't ever fathom in the real world now, but this is the fantasy aspect of this book. In fact, there's some awful scenes in this, as you would expect, given the content. There's a cellar that they stumble across containing survivors, but their limbs have been kind of harvested for food. So you've got these cannibals that are keeping these farms of humans, if you like. Very distressing indeed. People are starving. I'd say the worst part in the book for me is when they come across this group of people. They're just so happy that they didn't have to use the gun on them that they kind of turned a blind eye to the fact that a newborn baby was being cooked on a spit rack. I can't even say that without having to stop. So gruesome and grotesque is that sentence. But is that a world that people are going to have to deal with in decades to come? We've got issues now, haven't we, with border conflicts, issues in Europe. and different parts of the world. I don't know. It just takes one person to press one button, and then we're all in this horrible situation, aren't we? Well, let's hope we're not. Anyway, back to the book. They're starving. They're aiming for the coast, I'm assuming the Pacific Ocean, and they're trying to find a place where they can get food and shelter and just essentially get back to some normal semblance of life in that awful apocalyptic future. Obviously it's a disturbing book. I'm sure that's coming across in what I'm saying, my bleak tone. It is emotionally distressing in places, a boy that, we know that he's in ill health and he's not going to make it. Spoiler alert, but, when the father does eventually pass away, the poor boy stays with the body for 3 days, without food. Such a sad sight. And then when another man comes along, sees the boy alone, he tells the boy that he also has a wife and child, and that he'll take care of the boy. And now looking back, I didn't appreciate that ending when I read it 20 odd years ago. But now, it's just so loaded, isn't it? Can the boy believe this strange man? Or is this man tricking the boy and is going to use him for, nefarious purposes, shall we say? It's all about human beings having to, at some point, make that step and trust another human being. And again, it's a difficult thing to do when you're in a situation where society has failed and civilization has failed and is on the brink. So I love that ending now. And just so glad I read it again. Highly recommended book, not for the faint of heart, but certainly a great read.
Well, thank you very much for your review of this thrilling book, TC. The Road by Cormac McCarthy is available from all good book outlets. Thank you for joining me, and please remember to like and subscribe to Joy of Books.